You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of June 6th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we're here to watch the Republican Civil War and eat popcorn, and we're all out of popcorn, and oh my God, did it just escalate. It's the Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Yeah.
We had no idea when we started prepping the show today how bad it was going to get this afternoon.
How glorious it was going to get.
And so we have to admit, though, tech billionaires and crime spree presidents always have the ugliest breakups.
They do. Tearful, angry, throwing things.
So initially, we put in our notes like an hour and a half ago, quote, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate." Elon Musk posted on X, adding in a second post, "Such ingratitude." He
rigged the election for you and gave you $300 million. So,
and it turns out he's only given $200 million, and it looks like that last $100 million ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, as again, we kind of put a line under that one and said, breaking as we begin to prepare for the show, Elon posted, quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT, exclamation point, unquote."
Yeah.
Then
we work up a little bit because obviously the art of the deal would dictate you want to de-escalate this before it makes everybody involved look horrible and bad. And really, who I feel sorry for mostly, Blue Gal, are the Trump voters, because it's going to require an enormous amount of effort to remain willfully ignorant of how very, very bad this is. So they got to put in the extra time. There was tweet from Donald Trump, or truth, whatever you call it. "Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy." All capitals, crazy with exclamation points. So,
So that was on Truth Social at 11:37 a.m. today.
Yeah. And then
this was at about 2:53 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
"The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars," says real Donald Trump, "is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it," unquote.
The art of the deal.
And you talk about Trump voters having to pick between Elon and Donald.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you who's not actually having this problem are right-wing commentators.
No.
Hal Sparks had a whole string of them yesterday. And this was yesterday.
Right.
Before any of this.
Yeah.
And yesterday, Dana Lash was saying, and the only reason I would ever hear this is through the lens of Hal Sparks. But Dana Lash was telling her audience, look, you can love Donald Trump and think this bill is terrible.
Yeah.
The big, beautiful bill is full of pork. Elon is absolutely right. Because she knows that Donald Trump is temporary.
Right.
And Elon will be the richest man in the world for many years to come.
Money talks.
Yeah.
Bullshit
and
Walks or is hit by the hamburger from heaven. Yeah.
Yeah. Tim Pool, who is, many hundreds of IQ points lower than even Dana Lash, also, would not pick sides between Elon and Donald.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who truly can't afford to piss off Elon Musk are House members.
Yeah.
Republican House members, and Elon is not returning Mike Johnson's phone calls.
No. He wants the bill dead. He wants it killed. He wants this bill gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is making them, they box themselves in.
Yeah.
Because this was the 2/3, who's glad he's not there anymore is Vivek Ramaswamy. Because he yeeted right out of there, and now he's not part of any of this. But they really built themselves, the right built themselves this triumvirate -1 of these two powerhouse deal-making genius billionaire folks who are going to turn this nation around. And they're both weak, pathetic, sad, broke-brained old men. Except Elon Musk is not old. He's just old in his brain. Who have paper-thin skin and enormous egos. Yep. And they each think the other one owes them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. They're just both awful fucking monsters. And now they're two cats sewn in a leather bag fighting. And I sincerely hope, this is rooting for injuries time, if ever there was.
Yeah.
And I am just over here on the in the local area, on local Facebook, the right wing has gone very quiet because they don't know who to back. Right. Because Trump can reach out and destroy you politically. Yep. And Elon Musk can reach out and destroy you politically. And both of them are demanding that you pick a fucking side.
Right.
And this is what happens. This day was coming, and it has finally arrived. And we are here for all of the glory, all the bloodshed, all the teeth being knocked into the third tier of the bleachers. And these two guys there's no off button on these people.
Nope.
There's nobody. This is the other thing they lack. There's nobody who can tell Trump to fucking cool it. There's nobody who can tell Elon Musk to back the fuck off.
Yeah.
So why would they? They never have before. They've always gotten their way by just bullying and screaming. So why wouldn't they stop?
Well, and this is the consequences of having power.
Yeah.
Because when you're out of power, you can point inside to the Biden administration and say, Epstein files,
right.
Cover up.
Right.
And the podcasters who made their meals from screaming Epstein files are now having to contend with having Epstein file prostitutes heading up the FBI
and
coming out and saying, no,
he
committed suicide. We've seen the video. And sorry. It's like, well, let's look at the body language. Was he nervous when he said that? Was Bongino nervous when he said that?
Yeah. Well, and you and I saw.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
You and I saw, thanks to House Parks again, doing yeoman's work on this yesterday.
Yeah.
Was this whole panel of the, peanut butter head or whatever he calls this guy.
Something like that.
The PBJ, I don't follow them, so I don't really care. But watching these people just dance and sweat and try to find language that didn't implicate anybody about anything. This one asshole in the middle kept saying how uncomfortable it made him, and how uncomfortable the body language made him uncomfortable. Everyone's just very uncomfortable, and I'm just feeling glorious watching these assholes.
Yeah.
But there was this desperate desire to separate what actually happened on Epstein Island from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And you could, and they were using like visible hand gestures. All of the bad criminal things are over there. But my feelings for Dan, who I know really well, is a really good bro. And
he's
Kash
a great
and I have
guy.
talked, Kash and I shared a hooker once in San Antonio, he's over there. And these are two entirely separate issues. You have to think about them separately. And no, you don't. And third guy, this poor little adolescent who's caught, with his pants down, not knowing anything, is saying, well, the forces behind all this, the secret cabal behind all this, who are secretly pulling the strings, force them to do this. Because once you go into Washington,
Bongino to cover up, right? Yeah. There are forces behind it.
Once you go into Washington, man, the Trilateral Commission gets a hold of you, and you're fucked. So, I love Bongino. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Kash Patel is a totally honorable little man with a funny eye that goes all over the place, but you can trust him. But once you get inside the door, man, they get a hold of you. The system gets a hold of you, and the system made them do it. And you can tell by their body language they were afraid if they said anything, they'd be killed.
Yeah. Henry Kissinger's ghost would come out and suck out your soul.
And you can see the entirety of right-wing conspiracy stupidity, sort of distilled down to its perfect essence, where something horrible has gone wrong with their worldview that is incompatible with everything they said they believed in. And now they have to invent a reason why it's not their fault, not their friend's fault, and nobody's really to blame for anything. And you can watch the conspiracy. Well, it's an even greater conspiracy than you ever imagined, because, you know, the Freemasons plus the Trilateral Commission and the lizard people all forced Dan Bongino to say these things, even though he doesn't want to. But once he's out of office, I'm sure he'll tell the truth.
Well, and the thing is to accuse your opponents of pedophilia and raping babies and and on, and not willing, as Hal said, not being willing to look at, you know, Baptist youth pastors, because those guys are white and conservative. Right. So this is, and again, this is about, all of a sudden, you got to cash the check that your bullshit wrote.
Mm-hmm. And you can't, because it was all a lie. Yeah.
They can't do it.
And again, this is why it's going to be a challenge to the stupids, because they want to keep believing what's written on the check.
Right.
And reality keeps kicking them in the fucking teeth. And maybe at some point, these stupids will be hit in the head so fucking hard, they will briefly wake up to the fact that everyone they trust has been lying to them and ripping them off for their votes and their money. I doubt it, because I don't think.
Well, I know a lot of ex-Catholics who feel that way, though.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're ex-Catholics.
It finally hit their parish, and they realized, oh, you know, Father so-and-so touched boys for 30 years.
Yeah.
And we wrote checks to him, and we supported the church, and we did this and that. And so, you know, that's what it takes. It takes it coming to their house.
Right.
As long as it's Epstein and Epstein Island, and as long as you can just blame your enemies.
Right. For everything.
But now that's gone.
And Trump and Musk are in their house.
Yeah, right.
They have been accepted as trusted, completely trusted, because the whole shtick among right-wing assholes is that they secretly know what Trump really is up to. That they secretly know what the plan is. You liberals are all just fucking idiots for not realizing that it's 8-dimensional Chinese checkers he's playing.
Yep, and everybody from Fox News down to the lowest 200 customer or 200 viewer YouTuber says that.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just want to point out one thing, since you said it, is, you know, why aren't you blaming Biden for this? Why aren't you bringing Biden into this? Yeah. In Trump's tweet, when he said it's the easiest to save money in our budget is to terminate Elon Musk's contract, I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it.
Yeah.
Why didn't Biden do this? You know, it's got to you got to drag your enemies into this somehow. So this is literally a developing story as we're taping this.
Yeah, we don't know what the next Truth Social post by Trump or the next X post by Elon Musk going to be, but it's a developing story, folks. Yeah. And I gotta say, Driftglass, after all of this conversation, my only question is: does Kids Bop have a version of Somebody I Used to Know?
Do they?
Yes. You know what? It turns out they do.
Somebody that you used to know, but you didn't have to cut me off.
Okay, on a completely different subject. Did you realize it's June already? Holy crap, it's June already. And this is a month rich in anniversaries and proclamations and remembering things, which is our specialty. And since June is Pride Month, and Pride in Springfield here is always wonderful. It's always a great...
Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride. And, you know, we when they were younger and they lived here, we used to take the kids and their friends, and it was always this family-friendly, wonderful event that was just everybody loved going to it.
A van with kids from 6 or 7 different grades coming, from 3rd grade up till high school.
Yeah,
all kids and all their friends would use our van to drive downtown to go to Pride.
It was a blast. I love taking them. But since June is Pride Month, the degenerates and thugs that Republican voters have put back into power have been searching for the biggest possible way to say, fuck you, gays, get back in the closet. So let's start with this example. Michael Flynn Jr., son of former National Security Advisor and lunatic Michael Flynn Sr., used Nick Offerman's Parks and Rec character, Ron Swanson, personal hero of mine, to express opposition to Pride Month. Flynn's post included a clip of Ron Swanson throwing a computer in the trash. You all know the meme by now. But this time, it had the rainbow flag superimposed over the computer. And Flynn wrote, just wanted to post how I feel about Pride Month. And in response, Nick Offerman replied, Ron was best man at a gay wedding, you dumb fuck. Happy Pride, unquote. Because you know why? You know why? Because Nick Offerman is also Nick Awesome Man.
He's Nick Awesome Man. Yes, he is.
Nick Offerman 1, Michael Flynn Jr. and gay-hating assholes 0.
Yep, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And when right-wing podcaster Alec Lace asked White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and a reminder, this is a right-wing podcaster who now has a seat in the White House briefing room.
Yep.
And this is the kind of question Caroline Leavitt gets.
Mm-hmm.
Congresswoman Mary Nazi Miller, suggested that changing Pride Month to Family Month. Mm-hmm. I'd personally like to see maybe a nuclear family month.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are saying, oh God.
Yeah.
Some people are saying, let's get a Veterans Month. Does the president have any plans on making a proclamation, or is it just going to be June this year? Unquote. And Leavitt replied, quote, there are no plans for a proclamation for the month of June, unquote.
Yeah. Smirking as she said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, there was this, which I'm sure you've all heard about by now, from the Military Times, quote, Hegseth orders Navy to strip name of gay rights icon Harvey Milk from ship. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered the Navy to take the rare step of renaming a ship, one that bears the name of a gay rights icon, documents and sources show. A defense official confirmed that the Navy was making preparations to strip the ship of its name, but noted that Navy Secretary John Phelan was ordered to do so by Hegseth. The official also said that the timing of the announcement, occurring during Pride Month, was intentional, unquote.
Kevin Cruz on Blue Sky reminds us that Harvey Milk served in the U.S. Navy for 4 years, so he would be celebrated during Veterans Month.
Yeah. Just
so you know.
Yeah.
The month of June also marks an important date in American history. From Mississippi Today on this day, June 2nd, 1863. Quote, Harriet Tubman, along with black soldiers, took part in a daring Union raid of Combahee Ferry near Beaufort, South Carolina. She became the first American woman to lead a major military operation when she and at least 150 black soldiers helped to rescue more than 700 black Americans who had been enslaved on nearby plantations. Many of the men became soldiers for the Union Army. The Wisconsin State Journal described her as She Moses, whose raid struck terror to the heart of the rebeldom, without losing a man or receiving a scratch. She worked on similar missions with the famed Massachusetts 54th Infantry, portrayed in the award-winning movie Glory, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
To honor her, on September 13th, 2023, a naval vessel was named after her. That's 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
This is from the official U.S. Navy website. Quote, from the Office of the Secretary of the Navy SecNav Carlos Del Toro announced today that he named a U.S. Navy ship after American abolitionist and social activist Harriet Tubman on September 17th. SecNav Del Toro made the announcement during an emancipation celebration at Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Visitor Center in Church Creek, Maryland. The future USNS Harriet Tubman follows the tradition of naming John Lewis-class oilers after civil rights leaders and is the second vessel to bear her name. The first was a Liberty ship built in the United States during World War II. It's an honor to maintain the naming tradition for our John Lewis-class oilers, and Harriet Tubman is more than deserving of this recognition, said Del Toro. She was born into unimaginable circumstances, but she dedicated her life to facing great danger and adversity, becoming a conductor of freedom, helping others escape slavery. In addition, during the Civil War, Tubman was the first African-American woman to serve formally in the military. Her legacy deserves our nation's continued recognition, and our fleet benefits from having her name emblazoned on the hull of one of our great ships, unquote. But now that the Republicans have put bigots and fascists back in power, we have this from the Military Times this week.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, CBS reported Tuesday that the Navy is also considering renaming other John Lewis class oilers. I don't know why they're not getting rid of John Lewis. I bet they are.
Oh, yeah, just wait.
Including the USNS Thurgood Marshall, USNS Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and USNS Harriet Tubman. Both Marshall and Ginsburg were Supreme Court justices, and Tubman was a black abolitionist who helped slaves escape the South via the Underground Railroad, unquote.
Okay, two things. The first, I've read this similar article in lots of places, and in way too many places it says, essentially, they're going after liberal icons. Like, first of all, Harriet Tubman is not a liberal icon. She's an American hero.
Yeah.
You remember who the thing that Republicans always brag about, that they're the party that ended slavery? You remember that
yes.
at all?
Yes.
No, Harriet Tubman took up arms to free people from slavery. Mm-hmm. That is not a distinctly or specifically liberal value. That is a human value. That is a biblical value. So fuck you if you think that this is just about that. Secondly, clearly they're not content with winding the clock back to the 50s.
Right.
They want to wind the clock back to the mid-1800s.
Right.
You know, get rid of the women, get rid of the gays, get rid of the blacks, and everything will be great again.
Yep.
And because as I have said many, many times before, the reason my predictions, and this is just my personal opinion and observation, but it's verified by facts. The reason my predictions about Republican behavior have been so scarily accurate over the decades is that I have never underestimated how much they truly hate this country. They fucking hate this country, and they wish it was not the way it is now. They
and
do not
on that topic, what you just said about the mid-19th century, I don't know if you saw the interview with Bryan Cranston this week.
No.
At least that's where I caught it this week on YouTube. He said that MAGA, just the existence of Make America Great Again, is racist.
Of course it is.
Because when was America great for black people?
Right.
Ever. So you're making America great again. You are definitely going back to a place where racism was more entrenched.
Yeah. Formally entrenched, and women couldn't vote, and gays were in the closet. And, you know, if you stepped out of line, if you weren't conforming to the white male Christian conservative standard, you got stomped on. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want. They want that back. That's why they hired a bully and a billionaire to do their dirty work for them. And the bully and the billionaire now fucking hate each other. And that's a glorious thing. And speaking of groundbreaking African-American women, it turned out this week, Blue Gal, that you can actually break ground by being a nasty little sellout, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is from CNN. Quote, former Biden press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says she has left the Democratic Party and written a book titled, take it away, Blue Gal. Independent. But people aren't buying it. Oh, no, we have to buy that book, Blue Gal.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. The book, with its subtitle referencing a broken White House, was announced yesterday and hasn't moved the needle on Amazon at all. It currently ranks, I'll try to read this number correctly, but it's a big number, 1,728,594th in books. Typically, publishers hope to see something other than nothing, an immediate spike in pre-orders when an announcement gets lots of press, like this one has. But the press has largely been negative about Independent and Jean-Pierre. Biden world has gone scorched earth against her, and let me just say, we join them in that glorious endeavor. As Axios notes this morning, Politico's Eli Stokel said her attention-grabbing ploy has reignited frustrations that burned for years, particularly Jean-Pierre's pursuit of celebrity and personal media exposure, unquote. But don't worry, not to worry, good people. Even if Karine Jean-Pierre's book is a flop, and even if she has become one of those independents that we warn you about all the time, with the new billionaire-funded Welcome Fest super PAC, we're pretty sure she'll never miss a meal.
Yeah, we're pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because Democratic consultants are shopping for their next sugar daddies, Driftglass. Mm-hmm. This is hat tip our friend Kevin Holsinger. In Salon this week, they covered Welcome Fest, which wealthy donors are backing in an effort to promote centrists within the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Quote, this is from Salon. In terms of strategy, one of their leaders described a formation similar to that of the Justice Democrats, except instead of supporting progressives, the Welcome Party would support centrists.
Yeah.
And instead of putting up primary challengers against incumbents in deep blue districts, the Welcome Party would support candidates in purple districts where they think a more liberal candidate who might prevail in a Democratic primary would be at a disadvantage in a general election. There are about 4 districts in the United States where that is the case. And we live in one of them.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party and J.B. Pritzker and Dick Durbin, particularly Dick Durbin, had no problem finding a candidate for Illinois 13, where we live, who would not offend farmers.
That was it. That's pretty much the threshold. Yeah.
Nikki Budzinski is our congresswoman. She is all about the farm bill. She is a reliable backbencher. And it's only when Trump goes really super bad that she puts the word hell in her emails, which is a bad swear around here.
Right. That's a bad swear.
H-E double toothpicks. She said it in her email.
Yeah.
But no, she's not there to make waves or even chair a committee. That's not her goal. Her goal is constituent services,
and which
is farm bill.
You know who didn't quit their party to become an independent? Our former governor, Jim Edgar.
Yeah.
He's a fucking Republican. He's a Mitt Romney, green eyeshade Republican who is out there pitching that Donald Trump and his fascist movement are the danger.
Right.
And here we have little Karine Jean-Pierre, who was defended through gritted teeth by liberal Democrats every time she fucked up in the press conference, which was pretty much every day.
Right.
We tolerated her because, well, Joe Biden put her up there. She's doing the best she can.
She's a black lesbian, and it's important to have, representation matters.
She's trying. She's trying real hard. And and the minute she steps out, it's like, fuck you, I'm an independent now. And I'm going to tell you all about
please.
Yeah, money, please. Yeah. No. Anyway, back to the Welcome Party, who are basically, let's be clear, they're the third way. They're no labels. They're the forward party. They're the same shtick over and over and over again. They're the rhetoric.
And it's a bunch of political consultants finding money. Now, here's a key point. A key point of comparison in funding behind the groups, the liberal group and the centrist group.
Yep.
While Justice Democrats' Political Action Committee received over 25,000 donations in 2024, a cycle where they were not even supporting new candidates. Hello? They've got 25,000 individual donations.
Yep.
The Welcome Pack has just a few hundred donations. Oh, no.
Oh.
That means they have less money. Oh, wait.
No.
Donors to the centrist group include James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's son, who is liberal-leaning, gave $2.5 million to Welcome Fest, okay? Reid Hoffman, the billionaire LinkedIn founder, gave $671,000. Samuel Walton, the grandson of Walmart founder Sam Walton, $825,000. Joshua Bekenstein, a co-chairman of Bain Capital, $375,000. This seems like an awful lot of never-Trumper / Mitt Romney Republican money going to this group, the so-called elect centrist Democrats group.
I was really counting on funding from Bain Capital myself for this podcast.
We are always looking out for money from Bain Capital.
I guess we could just give that dream up, Blue Gal. I guess that dream is dead. So sad, very sad. Now, at this point, we do feel duty-bound to remind you that 50 years ago, a small group of English gentlemen named Monty Python's Flying Circus already had political pundits all figured out.
Anyway, let's go straight over to James Gilbert at Leicester.
Well, it's a straight fight here at Leicester. On the left of the returning officer, you can see Arthur Smith, the sensible candidate, and his agent. And on the other side is the silly candidate, Jethro Walrus Titty, with his agent and his wife.
Here is the result for Leicester. Arthur J. Smith.
Sensible party.
30,612. Jethro Q. Walrus Titty.
Silly party.
32,108.
Well, there's the first result, and the silly party have held Leicester. What do you make of that, Norman?
Well, this is largely as I predicted, except that the silly party won.
And now for the part of our show where we share something that has infuriated my beautiful wife, Blue Gal.
It did. And I read it to you when I came across it. And, let's share it with everybody.
Sure.
I want to start by saying these are two great folks that I'm talking about. Good people. The editorial board's John Storer interviewed ACA signups, healthcare journalist, and advocate Charles Gaba. I like both these guys very much. And so that's not my argument. But they're talking. Storer interviewed Gaba about the Republican efforts to cut Medicaid and how that plays out with Republican voters. And the result is utterly absurd, but also predictable. In fact, I talked about it on Tuesday's show this week.
Yes, you did.
Before I read this, I knew this was happening. Storer asks, I'm going to be generous and say that Trump voters seem confused. A recent report by NPR suggested that they don't want Medicaid cuts for people they know. But do want cuts for some kind of make-believe freeloader. This seems to me a recipe for continued support for Trump, even as he's hurting his own people. Thoughts? And Gaba responds, sadly, that sounds likely to be the case. I listened to and read the NPR piece you mentioned, and everyone who talked about waste or abuse spoke in very vague terms without ever specifying who they think is abusing or wasting Medicaid dollars. Now, up until this point in the interview, I got to say, these Trump voters are simply reflecting what House members are saying on Fox.
Right.
There's an imaginary waste, fraud, and abuse, able-bodied male playing video games and sucking up all those healthcare dollars.
Billions of dollars going to those people. Yep.
And it's back to Reagan's young buck.
Yeah. Welfare
on
queens
welfare,
and young
buying
bucks.
steaks with food stamps. It is. It's imaginary. But this is the part that got me in the gut. This is Gaba still talking. In addition, they seem to simply, flat out, refuse to believe that Republicans and Trump will take away their health care.
Right.
Because, well, that wouldn't be right. And I need it. Regardless of what's in the bill. I've read other articles where Trump supporters shrugged off the potential loss of Medicaid ACA coverage. Now, listen carefully, folks. Because they figured that Democrats would stop or reverse the cuts from happening. Which seems like a rather twisted sort of justification for supporting Republicans.
Right.
Unquote.
They have cast us because we're the only adults left in this country as their perpetual designated driver.
Yeah.
That they can get as violently drunk as they want on stupid ideas and
on
reckless
racism.
nonsense. And eventually we will get them home safely.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get up the next day and do it again. Meanwhile, in between, they will be calling us names and punching us and taking away our shit and slashing our kids' education funds and just generally carrying on like assholes. But once they've gotten too close to the edge of the cliff where it all falls apart, they can just toss us the keys and insist that we drive them to safety.
We have to clean it up.
We have to clean it. That is our job, to clean up after their mess. And I suggest, we've suggested many times, it's time for us to stop doing that. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. People will die. And I don't know what else to do to break them of the habit other than to rub their fucking noses in the fact that this is the choice they made. You voted for this shit. And the one thing that both the legacy media and conservative media and Republican voters all have in common is that they will not face the consequences of their own actions. They will not blame the people who are to blame for shit. They can't do it. And the only way to do that is to put your boot on the back of their head and shove their face into the shit they made and hold it there until they fucking suffocate, until they have inhaled enough shit to swear to God they're never going to do it again. Because if you keep letting them off the hook, I've said this before, if you raise a puppy and every time the puppy shits on the floor, you give it a T-bone steak.
Yeah.
And then it gets to be a grown dog and you're like, why is this dog shitting everywhere? Because you trained it to do that.
Yep.
That's what it thinks is supposed to do. Republicans believe they're supposed to be able to live like this. And the only way to stop them is to stop allowing them to use Democrats as their safety net.
Yep.
And I don't think, and this is where you and I have a little bit of a disagreement, I don't think they're educable the way normal adult humans are educable. I don't think they can be taught anything. I think they can be conditioned through pain and fear into doing things differently. But I think they're too far gone and too fucked up and too stupid, frankly, to learn anything. They just have to know, hot stove, don't touch. And every time they get near the stove, you grab their hand and put it on it again. And this is why some of them voted for Obama.
Yeah.
They had their faces pressed into the hot stove of George W. Bush for long enough for them to scream that they didn't want to be responsible for that anymore. They wanted that cleaned up. The global economy's fucked. So I will reluctantly vote for the black guy and give him a mop and tell him to clean up my mess and then hate him every single fucking second he's doing it.
Right.
And then at the first opportunity, I'm going to vote for the biggest racist I can find because that's who I really am. And that's the world I really want to live in. And so, we have some differences, you and I, on the edge.
No, I agree with you up to that point. I just think that it is the job of someone that decides to run for a House seat as a Democrat.
Yeah.
I think it's their job to communicate what you just said, which is, and this was Elon Musk's line, where's the gratitude?
Yeah.
You want Social Security? You know what? That's a goddamn Democrat program.
Mm-hmm.
You want veterans benefits? Fuck you for voting for Trump.
Yeah.
Look what he did. Mm-hmm. Look who you voted for. You say you didn't vote for veterans cuts? You fucking did.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, and all this crap about, well, I'm not a Democrat, but I don't like veterans cuts. Because you're too much of a pussy to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's time for candidates to cuss more.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Now I understand why you don't do that in a Senate and House hearing room.
I don't, but okay.
Well, you don't because then it just devolves.
Right.
And Robert's Rules of Order and so forth. I mean, I understand why, in order to get things done, you keep it on the low. But in front of a microphone outside the Congress, fucking Republicans did this.
Well, let me add two things to that. I agree. One is you can say that on the outside, but you can't. Here's what you can't do anymore, which is, and then you go back inside and your constituents see you shaking hands with the devil saying, my good friend here and colleague of many years have decided
across the aisle. There's too much of that. Yeah.
We've decided on a bipartisan bill to rename a railroad station after Bobo the Clown.
Right.
And standing there arm in arm and shaking hands, you can't do that anymore.
Yep.
And I know that there's just way too many people in the Senate, especially, who don't know how to do anything else.
No,
that's all they know how to do but voters put me here to be bipartisan 40 years ago.
Right.
And I've been doing it. And that's the job of the Senate, is to get along with each other and shake hands. Like, dude, you're timed out. Yep. The game has changed. Secondly, I got to say, let me invoke my sainted, late dirty hippie mom, who was a teacher for 45 years. And one of the things that she got increasingly pissed off about was that as the years rolled by, society generally dumped more and more of society's problems into her classroom.
Yep.
And said, fix these kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm here to teach them to read and write and so on, and the Constitution, and be good citizens, and how to bake bread and make peanut butter. She was awesome. She read them Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And she was a great teacher. And years later, people went into teaching because she taught them and they respected her. And I was blessed to have her as a mother. But one of the things that, as I said, truly pissed her off was somehow all of society's problems are now the teachers to fix. Fix this shit. My kid is lazy. Fix it. My kid is bored. Fix it. My kid's an antisocial scumbag. Well, what the fuck have you been doing with your life, parent?
Right.
And I got to start asking the question, now that the entire Republican Party and all their dysfunction is being dropped in our lap, and the undecided centrist voters being jumped in our lap because they don't know anything. We never read anything. We have no idea what we're doing. We don't read. We don't pay any fucking attention to anything. Where the fuck has the rest of your family been? How did your parents allow you to be raised this stupid? How do your teachers allow you to leave classroom without knowing that you live in the United States and we have 3 branches of government? Or did you just sleep through that too? The fact that that we just accept the fact that tens of millions of people have no idea what the fuck is going on in this country and don't care. I agree that's a problem, but I don't agree that's my problem. It's my problem because you made it my problem. But that is the problem of they were raised poorly by people who didn't give a shit about this country. And they were educated by people who were probably overloaded in the classroom. And everyone said, well, it's the teacher's job to teach them everything about everything. Because I'm very busy. And
and then to blame them and try to privatize education.
Right.
And blame teachers for things. And it's why no one goes into teaching anymore.
Right.
Is there is no winning.
No. Well, and
you can't win because teachers are to blame for everything. They're responsible for everything. They don't get paid enough. And they have to bring their own supplies into the classroom.
Right. And so when you go onto Blue Sky or you go on Twitter and do a quick, don't really do this, but trust me, this is how it works. Do a quick search for Democrats must emphasize, Democrats must educate, Democrats must communicate. It's everything, literally everything. And everyone has their own priority, and all of everyone's priorities about everything are now the problem of the Democrats, specifically the 200 plus Democrats who are in the House and the 49 Democrats who are in the Senate. Everything to do with educating everyone who doesn't know anything about anything is their fucking problem. I don't think so. I do challenge the people who say that to go out and try it.
Well, and that dovetails right into the next audio clip I want to play.
Well, yeah.
Which is a John Ossoff town hall.
Uh-huh.
I want to congratulate John Ossoff. His wife had their second child, a girl, this week. But 3 weeks ago, he was having a town hall in Georgia.
Yeah.
And this happened.
Why are there no calls for impeachment? This is unacceptable. I will not live in an authoritative country, and neither will any of these people. You can do more. I like you, and I will vote for you if you are brave, and you do what we need. We need him impeached. We need him removed.
There is no doubt that this president's conduct has already exceeded any prior standard for impeachment by the United States House of Representatives. I agree with you. But as I said at the beginning, I also have no choice but to be candid with you about the situation that we face and the tools that are at our disposal. As strongly as I agree with you, ma'am, and I regret if this is an unwelcome response, but my job is to be honest with you. The only way to achieve what you want to achieve is to have a majority in the United States House of Representatives.
So there's a voter who is on, even though she doesn't get the authoritarian right. I know it's because she's upset. And I would be too. I mean, in that situation, but she is, her voice speaks for a lot of people, including me.
It does.
I'm furious that we can't impeach and remove Trump right now.
Right.
And I fault. I think John Ossoff gave a very good answer. I fault him for not emphasizing we can't impeach Trump because Republicans won't.
Right. That's the follow-on sentence.
That's the thing that's missing.
Right. Republicans are fucking cowards and craven and in Trump's pocket, and they don't have the guts to do the right thing at all. Right.
And he should have said that.
And young lady, I'm talking about your people in your family. I'm talking about people that you know. So
and young lady would have stood up and said, "Yeah, I'm no contact with those people."
Yeah, well, that's fine. And then John Ossoff will say, "I don't have that option."
Right,
I'm
and that's why he didn't say that, because he's running for re-election in Georgia.
Yeah, well,
and he needs to peel off the Mitt Romney Republicans.
Well, no, I mean that my dear young person who's probably a fine young lady.
Oh, I think it's incredibly courageous of her to come to a town hall meeting and stand up and say what she said.
Right. But here's
She's
the
got
thing.
leadership potential right there. Yeah.
What I meant to say was, you have the option of cutting those people out of your life and not paying any attention to them.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with Republicans. I can't cut they run the fucking Congress.
Yeah.
And so the people you cut out of your life are the people that maybe you should try to educate if you think educating voters is simple, and learn how really difficult it is to get through to these people, because you probably already know it.
Yeah.
But it is nearly impossible to convince those people to vote for anything other than a fascist thug. And currently, The House is full of has more fascist thugs than it has people like me.
Right.
And nothing's going to happen until that changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I can win my district, but what about 2 districts over? What happens
and
there?
he's a senator too, so that's the
right.
other part of the problem.
Yeah,
is if we can probably win back the House with a comfortable margin and have a united caucus that will want to do things like the child care tax credit
and impeach Trump.
Yeah,
yeah.
But getting 60 votes in the Senate to do that
is never going to happen. It's never
going to happen.
And that is where a whole lot.
And that's not me being 60 votes in the Senate to pass anything. That's literally the Constitution.
Literally the Constitution. 2/3 majority. I think 2/3 plus 1, something like that. So, so I appreciate the fact that he was very clear that he agrees with their sentiment. He agrees with their passion. But it's math. There's math involved here. And the math is simply not, don't support the actions you want. If you want change, then we have to get more Democrats in the House. If you want real big change, you have to have supermajorities in the House and the Senate. And if you'd like to sit down and talk about how incredibly difficult that is and how that's a 10-year project, I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to enlist your help.
I think it is a 10-year project.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. And frankly, it involves getting some of those millionaires to help first of all, relocating young people away from 100 miles from the ocean.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
It's probably the toughest sell. I work on it on social media all the time. And on Reddit, there's actually a channel called Relocation where people are trying to move out of New York and trying to move out of Virginia. A lot of displaced government workers trying to find a place that has legal pot and affordable housing. If I sell my house, they've lost their government job. If I sell my house, I will have money.
Right.
To relocate to a cheaper area, but I don't want to live in a red state. What do I do? Southern Illinois.
Southern Illinois, man.
That's what you do.
Yeah. Yep. You're smack between. You've got Great Lakes north of you. You've got one of the world's greatest cities in Chicago. You've got a very good city in St. Louis. You have culture. You have agriculture.
We have, I will say, good schools in Springfield.
And you have the Professional Left podcast in your very own backyard.
Yeah, we'll have coffee with you.
Tell you what.
We know a realtor.
We know several. If you relocate to Illinois, we will have you on our show.
Oh, wow. There's a promise.
Yeah. But you got to know the passcode, Professional Left Podcast.
Yeah.
But if you relocate to Illinois and you know the passcode and you're not a right-wing asshole, then we'd be happy to have you as a guest on our show for, it depends, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe an hour. Tell us your story. Yeah.
Tell us your story. Yeah. But anyway, I'm just saying, but here's the problem. Relocating someone to Southern Illinois doesn't change the electoral map. That's the problem. We have 2 Democratic senators already. We already have 2 Democratic senators. We're probably going to have 2 black women Democratic senators next year. Knock on wood. Knock on wood right now. Quick, find some wood and knock on it. Knock. Turn around 3 times. Yep. Spit in the snow. I understand. Yeah. But there are no red cities. Right. Nashville is happening. If you moved people to outer Nashville, and yes, you're going to deal with some real assholes in Tennessee. I get it. Kentucky has a Democratic governor right now. Yep. We can change things, but it is going to take, and I'm grateful that our children, two younger children in particular, Junior dude moved to the Pacific Northwest. I got you. He did. But the two youngers are sticking around the Midwest. And as I have said this before, I'm going to say it again because it makes me so proud. Youngest child deciding to go to school in St. Louis because in Missouri there's more to protest. Yeah. I can't tell you how puffed up with pride I am. Well, and let me just add to that. As you're all on Zillow looking at property. Yeah. Remember that Harriet Tubman led military raids into slave country and freed people. All we're asking you to do is buy a fucking house. Okay? Yeah. And we are in the 627 zip codes. Yeah, we are. So check those out. 01 to like 12, 627. Check out Zillow and look at housing prices and see what you can get for your housing dollar.
Yeah, who knows? If this becomes a trend, we might get a visit from the Washington Post action van to find out what's going on in that Illinois diner. All right. Shall we?
Hey, Driftglass, we got to do a news roundup.
Yeah, that's true. And as you know from this podcast, our middle child's apartment was destroyed in the tornado that tore through St. Louis 3 weeks ago. And by destroyed, I mean destroyed. It wasn't lightly brushed. It was blown out, mattress thrown up against the wall. Some of her stuff just sucked out into space and never seen again. There was no
blown out of the room.
Blown out.
Which was her bedroom. Yeah.
She saw it coming. This storm wall came straight at her and her building, and you can see from her balcony that all the way to the art museum, which is a couple of miles away almost, it was just barbered, just shaved off. And trees. I'm a tall guy. Trees whose root diameter is taller than wider than me, just yanked out of the ground everywhere. Just rubble. Yeah. There was no warning. The sirens never went off. And as you probably know, FEMA still hasn't shown up to do anything except, investigate. Whether there's a real reason. 5 people came and
investigated. Yeah.
Now, she had been there for a total of 4 days.
Yeah, she'd moved in 4 days earlier.
4 days
That's
earlier.
Right.
So she hadn't yet bought furniture, which was a good thing for a couple of reasons. One, it would have been total. 2, it would have been shrapnel. And that would have been terrifying. And both her car and her new digs were totaled. Her car, we found out, is beyond repair, so that's totaled too. So since we've spent the week ferrying her remaining worldly possessions back to Springfield, we thought we'd lead off with this story from the New York fucking Times. Quote, states and cities fear a disaster season full of unknowns amid federal cuts. You want to continue with that, Blue Gal?
Sure. President Trump's efforts to downsize the government threaten essential functions that Americans have come to rely on before, during, and after natural disasters. States and cities along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts are heading into hurricane season with an extraordinary level of uncertainty, unable to gauge how significant cuts at vital federal agencies will affect weather forecasts, emergency response, and long-term recovery. They are bracing for the likelihood that fewer meteorologists at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration will lead to less accurate forecasts, and that the loss of experienced managers at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, will lead to less coordination and more inaction. Governors and mayors are also anticipating less financial aid as the Trump administration shifts the burden of response and recovery away from the federal government. That's a smash and grab is what it is.
Absolutely.
Exactly who will pay for what moving forward is a gaping question as disasters become bigger and costlier. There's no plan in writing for how FEMA intends to respond during this disaster season, said Trina Sheets, the executive director of the National Emergency Management Association, which represents state emergency managers. Things seem to be changing on a daily basis. You can say that again. There's no roadmap for states to follow or be able to plan for, unquote.
Yeah. This is the basic thing a government is supposed to do. A federal government is supposed to do. This is absolutely foundational. It needs to have the power, because no state can do it by itself, the power to step in when there's a disaster, marshal the resources of the entire nation, and help that area recover. That's it. And Trump and his assholes and the Doge assholes have decided that's a prime location to throw in a couple of nukes, smash the place, loot the place, and move on and call it a victory.
Well, and it's because that was one place where Trump continually got bad press.
Right.
Because Biden is so good. And the Biden administration and the Obama administration were so good at showing up at these disaster areas and being human.
Right.
And Trump is physically incapable of that.
And he also likes to
paper towels or does whatever. So he blames FEMA for the bad TV coverage that he gets.
He also likes to hold states hostage.
Yeah.
Like he did during COVID. Who's going to bid? Who's going to be nicest to me? Who gets? I'll decide who gets emergency supplies and who gets protective clothing and masks, depending on who's nicest to me. And California wasn't nice to me. So maybe California won't get disaster aid.
Right.
Which is the kind of raving evil that every Republican harbors in their heart. Mm-hmm. And they finally found a guy who will make it manifest. Fuck them all.
The most chilling thing I think that's happened this year in terms of what I've seen on the internet, Junior Dude was in the process before he moved to Washington of getting a master's degree in public administration.
Yeah.
And he's taking a break now and he might go back to school. He's thinking about it. I looked up the school in his area in the Pacific Northwest that offers that degree where he might continue.
Mm-hmm.
And they have canceled all of their procurement classes.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to teach that anymore.
Right. There's no way to know what you have to do.
How do you get the federal government to give you a grant to help you buy toilet paper and flashlights when the power goes off because of a tsunami?
Yeah. Yep.
You can't.
Well, I used to be a grant manager. And one of my many jobs, and I was very good at it, was you've got to understand where the money's coming from, what it's going to be used for, and the rules for getting it, and the rules for proving that you used it correctly.
Proving that you did it.
And
did what the grant asked you to do. Yeah.
And that's all gone now. It's all up in the air. That's not true for state grants. It's not true for private grants necessarily. But the big dog, the big money, the stuff that actually moves mountains is our federal grants. Those are all my entire department, 80% of it that I used to work for in the city of Chicago was federally funded. The money came from the state, but the state got it from the Fed. And we had to make numbers, and we had to prove that we'd done what we said we were going to do. And we got audited all the time. And
that's because of waste, fraud, and abuse. Right. That you would double check and triple check to make sure the money wasn't wasted, it wasn't stolen, it wasn't spent on the wrong thing.
And I had to fill out an ethics attestation every 6 months that I hadn't taken anything worth more than $50 from anybody. And that any source of
income fundraise at your blog.
Right. Any source of income other than the city, I had to disclose fully where it came from and how much. So no $400 million planes for this guy. This is from the New Republic. Quote, Trump arrest of immigrant shocks small MAGA town. An immigrant's expected deportation has triggered anger and regret among Trump-backing Missouri locals. Carol Hui has lived for 20 years in a small town in Missouri after coming to the United States from Hong Kong. She'd been raising a family in this town and works as a waitress and a house cleaner. And as New York Times reports, she's well liked by a lot of the locals. But recently, Carol was arrested, and she now faces potential deportation. This has shocked and dismayed many of the town's residents, even though the area went overwhelmingly for Trump, unquote. Now, there's a follow-up story, and the end of the story so much reminds me of The Wire. If you watch The Wire, where in the 5th season, I think, McNulty, the star cop of the show, invents a non-existent serial killer to get overtime to investigate actual crimes, because the actual crimes were all getting cut. The budget was getting cut, and nobody's getting any money, but he created a spectacular, media-friendly serial killer who tied red threads around the homeless men's wrists that he killed just by, homeless people die all the time, and he made it look like a serial killer. Suddenly it became a vital interest to the department, and he got all the overtime he wanted by lying about it. This is from the New Republic. Quote, hitting Stephen Miller's new deportation quotas could mean fewer resources to fight child trafficking, terrorism, and other crime. Do Americans really want that? And one of my bugaboos here is, please don't say Americans, because when you're talking about a specific group of people, because I don't want to get lumped in with these losers.
Right.
The potential deportation of people like Carol Hui, which has shocked locals in the Missouri town where she's lived for 20 years, has inspired a searching debate. What did people think they were voting for when they chose Donald Trump? The relentless smearing of illegals, the mass deportation now signs at the 2024 GOP convention, and the vows to herd migrants into giant camps. How could voters not have known that Trump would remove as many as possible? What a good question.
That's a great question.
According to the article, these are hard questions with no simple answer. No, I have a very simple answer, so just call me. I'll let you know what the simple answer is. But here's one thing we can be reasonably sure of. Most voters had no idea that to execute Trump's mass deportations, the administration would shift huge amounts of law enforcement resources away from combating serious and dangerous crimes potentially hampering efforts to keep us safe. Yet that's exactly what's happening.
And all of us should be terrified of that.
Robbing Peter to pay Stephen Miller.
Yep. Yep.
NBC News reports that top Trump advisor Stephen Miller recently erupted in anger over what he sees as woefully lagging deportation numbers, privately threatening to fire senior immigration and customs enforcement officers over it. He demanded the detention of 3,000 migrants each day, sources told NBC. What a filthy, despicable human being.
Mm-hmm.
It's not surprising that the failure to impose maximal cruelty and suffering on the vulnerable would infuriate a dime store fascist like Miller. Well played there, article. What's striking, though, is that this has prompted the administration to devote, quote, more than 5,000 personnel from across federal law enforcement agencies to arresting undocumented immigrants. This includes 1,800 agents from Homeland Security investigations, which usually probes crimes that don't involve non-criminal migrants. It also includes 2,000 employees from law enforcement agencies at the Justice Department, like the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration. This is already hindering other crime fighting. Quote, federal law enforcement officials say the increased focus on cases with an immigration angle is pulling resources from other law enforcement priorities, unquote.
So if you're a native-born white American citizen with a U.S. passport, it's a great time to start importing fentanyl.
Oh, yeah, or anything. Yeah. Any crime you can think of. Drugs, money, guns. Guns are always great. Explosives. Yeah, and don't forget, if you want to get your crime taken seriously, if you want a cat taken out of your tree, and you call the fire department, and they'll say, fuck you, but I think an immigrant put the cat in the tree. Well, we'll be right there, man. We're going to send the entire SWAT team down to get that. You think it was an immigrant? Oh, yes. He was swarthy in appearance, and he had a hungry look on his face. I think he was Haitian. Oh, man. We're going to send the entire police department down there right away.
Right. Because Trump is now making it illegal for Haitians to visit the United States.
Yeah.
Along with a number of other countries. All very racist oriented.
Well, exactly the same as renaming ships. It's the whole, it's the same thing. It is a complete ideology, and it's called fascism.
Yes, it is. It is white nationalism.
Yeah,
yes, it
absolutely it is.
Yeah. This is a short story from The Independent, but gets my goat. Quote, Texas police used nationwide license plate reader network to track a woman who had a self-managed abortion.
Got nothing to add to that, other than the surveillance state in the hands of monsters is a frightening thing to behold.
Yeah.
From The Verge, pay attention, writers, because that algorithm the New York Times uses to generate those god-awful David Brooks columns may soon be your key to success at the Washington Post. Woohoo! There's hope for me, Blue Gal. Quote, the Washington Post could soon allow non-professional writers to submit opinion columns using an AI writing coach known as Ember, according to a report from the New York Times. The move is reportedly part of a broader initiative to open the paper to outside opinion pieces, including from other publications, Substack writers, and amateur columnists. Who knows? Ben Dominic might get his column back.
Yeah, Arianna Huffington, eat your heart out.
Eat your heart out.
Yeah.
Sources tell the Times that Ember could automate several functions normally provided by human editors, such as including offering a story strength tracker that indicates how a piece is progressing, or telling them, story sucks, you shouldn't write this, bad, throw it out. The tool also reportedly has a sidebar showing the fundamental parts of a story, such as beginning, middle, and end. No, that's not true. That's just me editorializing, because I don't have an AI assistant to tell me how to do that. Such as an early thesis supporting points and a memorable ending. And the immigration authorities came and got the cat out of the tree. Yeah.
Class, you have a degree in writing, don't you?
I do. Degree, a minor in tech, and which have not served me particularly well. But you know, I'm not Washington Post material, Blue Gal.
I don't know why 20 years of writing excellent posts about politics doesn't get you a job at the Washington Post. But then again, I do know.
I do. When I saw Jen Rubin running out the door in the opposite direction, I knew the Washington Post was not the paper for me. And when they said, we're looking for a writer to write blah, 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 is that David French fella available? You know, the guy who hates gays and bashes liberals and is right-wing evangelical nut. Is he available? Yes, he is. So, so I'm very happy writing my little post for my little blog and writing notes for my podcast, and just living the Vida Loca in beautiful Springfield, where real estate prices are very low, and you're close to major American cities and train tracks. We have airports here. There's an international airport in Springfield. Granted, it only flies to Florida, but still.
I gotta say though, thank you for Amtrak. I'm grateful that Amtrak hasn't, died, because middle child can get to youngest child in St. Louis from here in less than 90 minutes for $15.
Absolutely.
Off peak.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And since their job will be taking them down to that area, it's possible to commute. It's a little inconvenient, but if you've ever fought a Chicago rush hour, it's not a whole lot worse than that. If you're on a train and you can do some work on the train and just get off at the stop and catch an Uber 10 minutes later.
And the trains are nice.
The trains are nice. It's a great American thing.
Thank you, Pete Buttigieg. Yeah.
We should have 1,000 more of them, and they should be connected.
We should have, and high speed across the country. Yeah. We absolutely should. Yeah.
Anyway. Off to you, Blue. I'll just say unquote, and we'll call it that. How's that?
I love the prompts, though.
Yeah.
You need more supporting points, Driftglass.
Yes.
What? Because my 30-screen article about David Brooks isn't long enough?
Yeah. Are you sure you won't just say fuck that often in this article?
Yes, I'm sure.
Even spelling it
spelling
it in the Chaucerian with a PH, I noticed that it's still the same word. Yeah.
I did want to share, there's a person on Blue Sky named Connor who has shared Elon and Trump pulling into separate Home Depot parking lots and tweeting, "I'm here, you fuck-ass bitch."
I will fight you at recess, Blue Gal. I will fight you at recess. I'll see you under the bleachers at recess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So finally, yesterday, a reporter asked Trump about the auto pen, which is the new Solyndra, Benghazi, Hunter Biden's laptop.
Grey Poupon. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
No, this was the employment numbers are soft, which is actually, Maria Bartiromo's actual job is to report on the economic numbers.
Yeah.
So she said 3 sentences about the all bad economic numbers and then said, and now we're going to talk about the auto pen.
Auto pen?
Yeah. Yep. And it's a 3-syllable statement that's not used every day. This is what they always do. 3 syllables. Benghazi, Solyndra, you can go on, and there's multiples of these. And it is a code word for Democrats are bad.
Right. But for Trump, they had to shorten it to 2 syllables, auto pen.
Auto pen. So a reporter, and I assume it's a right-wing reporter allowed into the White House, asking Trump about the auto pen. And since Trump is a depraved old fraud with a broken brain, this was his response.
I'm asking, have you uncovered any evidence that anything specific was signed without President Biden's knowledge or by other people in the administration acting illegally?
Well, I don't think Biden would know whether or not he signed it.
I'm asking if you've uncovered any of that information.
No, but I've uncovered, the human mind. I was in a debate with the human mind, and I didn't think he knew what the hell he was doing. So, it's just one of those things, one of those problems. We can't ever allow that to happen to our country. The danger our country was in, and I know some of the people that worked with him, radical left, horrible people.
2547 is what I have to say.
Yeah.
Hey, each week we post to our Patreon page and website an internet kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's internet kitty is Lyra, the polydactyl princess. She's a lovely kitty with many toes. And of course, Lyra eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will tap their many toes impatiently on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured.
Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh my Lord, it's freshly poured.
And you can visit Lyra. She is such a pretty kitty at our Patreon page, patreon.com/proleftpod, or our website, proleftpod.com. And you can send your internet kitty, dog, or any other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. feel free to write us. We do absolutely love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, Go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Thank you to folks who have asked me to sign the amicus brief coming from Harvard.
Yeah.
I did that several days ago, so you don't need to remind me to do that, but I do appreciate your thinking of me. Thanks.
Yeah. And, of course, don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can afford to buy a fine espresso-based beverage for yourself, whether pre-tariff priced or post-tariff priced, buy one for us. This is not a charity. This is our job. If you can afford $5 a month or more, please afford $5 a month at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. Please also, very helpful to us, share our show on social media, especially to those coastal elites who are looking for real estate deals in the Midwest. Let them know we have an offer for them. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to that as well. Thank you so very much for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are looking forward to their new careers as the Washington Post's new AI-assisted theater critics.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.